This conference will now be recorded.
Hi guys, good morning. So today we're gonna discuss monitoring section. So monitoring is big section actually. So the first and foremost coming to the monitoring, what we need to know is that what is this Azure monitoring? Okay, what does this actually helps us? So the Azure monitor basically is like any other normal monitoring unit. So I believe somebody might have known about Nagi OS. Does anybody know this one before? Worked on with it? No idea.
No,
Richa?
no
No.
idea.
Okay. Okay. So let me just tell you what is this basically. What is okay? Anybody tell me what is monitoring basically? Why people tend to monitor their IT resources?
To know how much we use.
Uh, to know how much they have been. Okay, no, not really. See, okay, let me give you a small example. You are the in charge of, okay, you're in charge of an aeroplane service. So when you say you're using your plane, what are the things that you actually always monitor or check before you take a particular flight into motion? Obviously, things like check engine, oil, any leakages, any kind of damages on outer section, all the required health checks related to the components of your airplane. Similarly, you are an IT service provider. So there would be a lot of components that are actually working in conjunction with each other so that you will get this service. Okay. So let me just say you have a virtual machine here. This virtual machine is already contains several components such as the disk, such as the size, because disk comes with size, okay, and the size comes with capacity. So when you say I want to increase the size of my VM, you can actually increase your ability to serve more people. Okay. Similarly, there would be a lot more other components inside this VM, like application, um, uh, like application, so if you can put directly application on a VM, okay, it's not a problem. But you can also put the application inside a container. So you can also need to maintain your network. Suppose if your network goes down, you will be unable to serve. If your container goes down, you will be unable to serve. Same goes with storage. If your storage is already full, then you can't, your service won't work because it can't store any more data inside the storage. So there are a lot more that you need to monitor. So any IT product, let's say any IT service, will at least have three monitoring components. One, the likes of which is the storage. The second is the CPU. And the third is the complete health checking status of the node as well. So when you say node, what do you mean? I'm talking about a VM. Okay. So the VM should be in operational state. Okay. So if the VM is not in operational state, something has crashed the VM, maybe due to high overload, or maybe due to some failure, some disk failure, or some hardware failure at Azure data center level as well. So then the VM is not in operation. Will you get the service? You won't. So that's why we need to monitor our IT infrastructure. This is in short. So in let's say in few sentences, if I just want to rephrase this, Azure Monitor will help us to maximize the availability and the performance of our applications. So availability means your application, your virtual machine has to be available. Okay, so it has to be available all the time. Suppose if your virtual machine is not available for 6 hours per day, then people might think that you have taken the service down. So there are certain trends in Google which shows that if a user unable to get his service in IT service in 6 seconds, he will leave the service. So the maximum amount of patience related to people who are in IT, who are using IT services, is maximum of 6 seconds. So you can't let your service down even for 6 seconds. That is the thing that you need to understand. If your service is in production, it means that 6 seconds is the barely limit that you can take down the service and make it up again. So how can you make sure that you will be saying for confidence that, hey, our IT service will be always be available? You need to use the monitoring services. Without monitoring services, you won't be able to maintain such level of solution always up and working. So what are other utilization of monitoring? So how you maintain such kind of a service? It depends on completely time series database metrics. So normally, how do you maintain any kind of a monitoring service? You always watch, you collect a lot of events that is actually going on with the component, you analyze the events, and you come with the particular narrative, particular summary of the total impact of this event on the service. And if there are any kind of let's say any kind of what you perceive as risk operations carrying on, then you immediately act on it. So we basically call them as these risk options, when risk events, like any event which can actually can make the whole service down, you consider that as a risk and you put an alert on it with a high severity. So if your severity is high, it means that the manual entry or the manual fix is highly required and has to be highly has to be very fastly implemented. So coming to the Azure Monitor service, so I believe it is clear for us. Azure Monitoring is really required if you want to maintain a service for a larger time. Now, what are the other kind of features we get from Azure Monitoring? We not only just monitor, okay, the application uptime or application the network accessibility, the container, let's say container status. We also maintain, we analyze defined metrics such as CPU utilization, memory utilization, and then the data ingress data, egress data, amount of hits. All this we can actually analyze as metrics, and also we can as well store our log analytics as well. So when you say log, what do you mean by that? So till now we discuss mostly on the focus of VM. Now you have an application. Your application can contain multiple layered components. Any application will actually built with at least 6 to 7 software components. Okay, so there would be obviously an application which is written maybe in Java, maybe in Node.js, or maybe in PHP, maybe in Python. Will start, has to work with integration with this particular application. There should be a database which must work to store the data, and there should be some kind of Elasticsearch to pop up the most recent used data. There should be a fast to increase the speed of application performance, you might need to use some kind of Redis or any kind of what you call this in-memory database. So to increase the speed of your application, so at least you have 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5 components. So all these components comes with different kinds of services. So to provide that direct service, you need to have all the 5 components do their service jobs. Now all these 5 components or maybe more, you need to actually get a log of activities or events. So when you say what is a log activity, so whenever your application does a transaction or does a particular activity, so this kind of transaction will trigger will be recorded as events. So all the events from your application and from your other components, all the events will be curated as log analytics. So we basically have log analytics for all the application, all the components of your application, in addition to your VM, in addition to your VM network, your VM, what do you call this, storage, everything. So monitoring is a huge job. It's not easy. At the same time, it's not that hard. It's just that it is huge. It has a lot more components, and it has to be create it. One has to create it with very meaningful and very effective alerting system. So because you can't always stay there as a resource and look at your infrastructure. So your monitoring has to be created in such a fashion that the metrics, the monitoring activities should trigger the alerts which can self-heal, or we call that smart alerts. So when an alert is triggered, immediately if you know the solution, what need to be done, so immediately the alert will trigger that action. You don't really need to take an action for that. So we call that smart alerts, which is a feature of Azure Monitor, and also some automated action. So if there is an alert triggered, then immediately an automated action can be implemented, which is just I just mentioned as smart alert. Now you can also, but imagine you have a system like Facebook, which has, I believe, almost just application level around 20 to 30 components. So all these 20 to 30 components are nothing but 20 to 30 services. All these 30 services should work in conjunction without any kind of data problems. That means data, if you post, you made a post right now, but your post is not unable to show in your friend's timeline for 2 seconds. That is a data problem, because 2 seconds is the delay that required for the application to pick up the new post. So there are a lot more, complexity will increase with the usability. So now you have, let's say, 20 to 30 services in Facebook. Imagine you have to maintain 20 to 30 services Facebook in different regions, which has a different way of different legal compliances. So you definitely, monitoring of Facebook is a huge thing, but you need to understand that what to monitor, how to monitor, what kind of what is called a severity, how many types of, how many types of severity, and what to do when severity arises. So all these things will brief you by your organization based on your organization's monitoring strategy. But currently, what we're going to discuss on today's lesson would be working on some basic monitoring steps. We'll basically do some kind of hands-on on it. And this is a nice page for you. If you never heard about monitoring, you can actually go through with it. So it's just type in Google called Azure Monitor Overview. Then you will get a huge page with a lot of details. So if you can see here in this particular image, so you have an application level monitoring, operating system level monitoring, resource level monitoring, subscription level monitoring, and tenant level monitoring. So all these has to be monitored because you're working in an organization. So you will have a set of resources for what you call this production, set of resources for QA, set of resources for staging, So all these resources has to be monitored at the next level called operating system and application level monitoring. But imagine you are a bigger organization and you have a multiple projects. Then you have to subscribe, you have to monitor at subscription level. Okay. Now imagine you are a more bigger company just like Facebook. Then you have to have a region level or tenant level, because not only just a single project, but also there would be a lot more tenants. So you would be making a direct deal with Azure to get this kind of access. But currently, just focus on these four. So these are the four different levels of monitoring, and each level comes with, not each level, but most of the application and operating system level comes with insights monitoring, or we get this basic insights or information regarding your current resources, and you visualize them, you can analyze them, you can respond with alerts or auto scaling, and you can integrate in your application APIs. So these are the five different, what you call this, domains of the Azure Monitor. So the basic core of Azure Monitor would be either metrics or logs. So metrics basically used for analysis. Logs also can be used for analysis, which in turn can be used to respond or create alerts, which in turn can actually work us with very easy of use. So I hope this is clear. Any doubts till now? It's better time to ask. Hello,
No
Raghu.
doubt.
Uh, no doubts, Ruja. Okay, great. Rohit and Raghu.
No doubts. No doubts.
Okay, Raghu, any questions on that? Raghu, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Any doubts on the monitor level? I believe you're already working in VMware, right? So you must be knowing it, but this is clear, right? Good. So by the way, Raghu, I don't know. Kiran asked you to give a call later this meeting. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So this is clear, right? So can I proceed with the someone hands-on on the platform now, guys? No questions, right? Good. So let's go with basics of where is the portal? Okay, not a problem. So if you see, coming to the, I just wanted to discuss regarding the subscription. So if you just click on your Microsoft account, okay, this is the account that you log in with. So if you want more subscriptions, so like we discussed here, subscription level monthly. So currently there is only one subscription, okay, but I can add another subscription that would be completely a different account, okay, but tied to my account, but I have to pay for that if I add that, you see. So again, but I won't be getting the Azure benefit of a 12 months minimum service. So this is the best one. So I won't be creating any, but I'm just trying to show you how to add a new subscription. If you ever require to add, basically this can be taken at the admin level. So they won't ask you to do this, but it's just you need to be mindful. So we can choose 5 different options, of which this is basically support from Microsoft. So a lot of people basically go with just dev support, but going with the standard support is the best one, because they will actually answer or help your critical business queries. So if you are actually asked to recommend a service subscription, then always ask the certain questions such as, okay, so am I using any Microsoft products? Yes. If you're using any Microsoft products, what is the credit quality of this particular product? Are you using any latest product like 2020 or 2019? Yes. If you're still using a 2019, maybe email service, or maybe some kind of any kind of Microsoft oriented product, if it is of the latest version, always go with the standard, because our professional direct support, both are okay, because Microsoft tends to have a lot of runtime bugs. So you might be having a hard time to identify, but having a professional direct support will help you at least to solve the bug in a required time, in amicable time. So this support really helps you. I mean, I already faced this in my real-time situation where I had to work on a certain project which actually has a lot of Microsoft components, and certain component just stopped. And we had a hard time to identify why this is stopped working. So at the time we had I believe standard support. So we immediately gave a call, and the technical support team member picked up. He was able to troubleshoot because he was working. He was exclusively an expert in such an area, so there was no runtime bug, but it happened due to some kind of inconsistency at a software package. So this kind of things always happens. So always go with what kind of support you need. It's okay since you are using Azure. So the standard support comes with Azure standard support. That means the first and foremost, Azure guys will give you a call. But if you are actually using any kind of Azure products on your Azure infrastructure, only then use it. If you are actually leaning towards open source, you don't really need to go there. You can just stick with those support or just pay as you go. Okay. So this is the current. So if you select one, let me select this one. Okay. What happened to this one? I have to sign up again. Simple. Yeah. So they will ask some payment details, technical support agreement, address, stuff like that. So once you do this, you get a subscription. Okay. So currently I don't want this one. So I'm closing this off. Okay. So this is all in short. So the current cost for me is around 337 rupees. Okay. So this is all about creating a new subscription. Okay. So let me go with this details. Resources. So I believe we already created resource groups. There is nothing but Azure resources. Okay. And okay, let me see the resource groups. I have two resource groups. One is demo 2 and one is network watcher. So let me just create my monitoring. Let's go to monitoring now. Okay. So this is the basic. Since I didn't use monitoring, so I have everything the basic default dashboard. Now in this monitoring, you can see that there are a lot of diagnostic settings. In the diagnostic settings, you can see that the public IPs that I'm actually using, the network security groups I'm actually using, and the adapters. Okay, so you can go with the, if you want to know the insights of virtual machines, you can actually get started. So you can see that there are two non-monitored VMs. So I'm going to enable this one. So this actually gives me the more analysis or insights of it. So you can see that get more visibility to health and performance. This is something that I have to pay again. So you can check the pricing. It's about amount of data that is being actually in use. You're not going to touch 100 GB hour. Okay. So currently we are not going to use this because I don't really need it, but it depends on the organizational requirement. So let me also show you the current applications. So there are no applications have been deployed so far for application level insight. So if you deploy an application, of course you can do that. So in short, this is the overall view. So there is no activity logs happen. So now what we're gonna do, okay? So there is something called service side. Okay. So if you want to check, make sure that your Azure is working on that, you also need to be, because sometimes it can be a problem at the data service level. So you can actually create a particular subscription and then you can see a service health dashboard. But this is about only Azure. Okay, you can create this. I don't know this. Okay. So coming to the service issues, there are none. There's no maintenance planned, nothing. So you always need to be a bit wary about maintenance because I believe in AWS there was almost 4 to 5 hours of North Virginia was down for almost 6 hours. So if you just host on North Virginia, all the services are down for 6 hours, which is a big problem for companies because it's not because of them, it is because of the service provider. Okay, so if you go to history health, there are no results. Okay, good. So I think in last 3 months there is nothing. Service book, these are called workbooks. Okay, so they have a lot more. So if you want metrics, you can check the CPU utilization of the machines. Okay, because I can't use the first machine. So if you can see, the CPU utilization is 0.4% only. Okay, you can see a lot of metrics. Simple. The amount of disk write, network in, network out, the average CPU timeline, and amount of CPU utilization. Basically, this is your key metric. And coming to the if you have your services on across the world, then you can see okay, what is the highest CPU utilization and what is the lowest CPU utilization, and you can plan for rerouting or making adjustment to your infrastructures. So this one is not available and this is available. Okay, these are the simple utilization of workbooks. So this is just only CPU. Okay, so let me just go back to gallery. You can see there are a lot more. If you host any kind of coming to the Azure resource locations, but I believe I have only one, so it doesn't make sense. But normally, if you have multiple, then it is actually very handy to give a quick insight. So coming to this diagnostic settings. So coming to the diagnostic settings, let me go with demo 2, VM2, network security group. So coming to the diagnostic settings, what is a diagnostic setting? A diagnostic settings is basically used to configure any kind of log export and a metric export to the destination, because we also need to collect the resources, right? So let me just create a diagnostic setting. So I want to have a diagnostic setting on every security group event, because rule encounter is something that if I define a rule, and of course it has to complement that rule, because that will create a lot of redundant activity for me. Because if I allow port 80, then every time the security group will search for the port 80 traffic, and if it is compliant, then it will allow it. So how many times this kind of encounter happened? Okay, how many rules? I mean, I will not only just define just 80, right? So I would be defining about 43, 80, and then maybe some other I see MP packets. So what are the rules I actually given? I can also given an encounter. It depends on how you want to have it. So what I need to do? I can export this particular group events or logs from network security group to send to the log analytics of Azure Workspace. Okay, but I don't want to use log analytics currently because it's expensive. So I want to actually store them in a storage account. This is very common. You have to store them anyway. So now the retention, how much amount of retention you want to have, how many days you want to store, 1 day to 7 days, how many I want to store for every 7 days. I want to store this. Okay, so now the retention storage account is in US. This is my demo to diagram. Yeah, this is my storage, and let me just save. This one. Diagnostic setting name, network security event log. I don't want to event her. That should be good. Now I'm going to save. Okay, this is done. So we have already implemented a log export. Now you want to know, you want to verify, go to storage account. So obviously I have my space. This is my default storage account. I believe I have a container here. Yes, and I have blobs. Yes, you see, there is already. Okay. Why don't say blobs? Did I put here? It's 28/7. What is the date? This is all done. I think it has to create. Okay, but normally they should come to this container. Okay, let me check for any blocks. Okay. Okay, it should become here. Let me refresh. Maybe something popped up. Nothing happened. Let's check maybe tomorrow. We can find it. Since I'm not using this account, so we don't actually get the logs actively. So normally this is the account, and inside the account you have to go for container. There you will have the all your log exports to be here. Okay. So coming to this, I believe we just discussed about diagnostic settings now. Okay. Now let's work on something called alerts. Okay. So I want to use monitoring alerts. So I want to create a new alert. So I want to select a resource. So what I want to actually alert on? Okay, VM virtual machine. So I want to use virtual machine. I want to start my alert on virtual machine because I have a virtual machine. I want to select this particular VM. Okay, and done. So this is my scope. So the first and foremost, you have to define what exactly are you going to do your monitoring on. Currently, I just want to actually monitor my AVM resource. Now, the condition I want to do is what? Restart. Okay. So this is my condition. So currently I don't have any data over the status of the monitor. But if I have any kind of in the last 6 hours, if there are any activities which actually have the same event, such as restart, then I will get an alert. So coming to the alert logic. Okay. So what is the event level it should be? So normally this is critical severity. Highest severity will be critical. Second most will be error, warning, information. So I will put a critical severity because if a VM is restarted, it means that there is some problem with the crash or machine. So we have to make sure that the status is okay. So the event criticality would be critical. The status would be failed. Okay, and event initiated by all service and users. Okay, now that's what I want to put a condition on. So you can actually, it's very readable. You say that whenever the activity log has an event with a category, this is the activity log with administrative, signal line restart virtual machine, level critical, status is failed. It will have that status. Now the action group. So action groups are where you actually can write or trigger any kind of predetermined solution for your failed situation. So this is your failing. I mean, this is your what you call this condition or your situation where you're actually having a restart of a virtual machine happening, and you want to do something on it. So what should I do? First of all, you need to create an action group because who is actually taking an action? So let me create an action group here. The action group would be, okay, monitoring support 01. Short name would be MS01. Subscription would be same, and default activity resource group. So what kind of a resource group? I want to define a different resource group. The default will be activity log alerts, because I don't want to completely have them in this, but I can put in the same group. It doesn't make sense for me. Okay, it depends, because I consider the whole monitoring as a single unit. That's why I'm creating a different resource group. Now the action name would be and action type. So what do you want to do in the action name? So I can define any name. Okay, response one. Okay, but here the action type is very significant. What do you want to do? You can either create a run a automation runbook, or you can run an Azure function, which is like a serverless function, or you can send an Azure resource manager role email, or you can actually put in an SMS. Let me put an SMS here. Okay, so I'm actually putting an SMS. So here I'm gonna put my name, and I'm gonna give a number. Okay, now that's it. And okay, and I'm saying okay, done. I'm saying okay. Now it is creating the action group. It has successfully created the action group now. But I should see it here. Let me select it. Now it is selected. Okay, good. Now the rule would be VM restarted. Okay, test alert. Okay, so this alert would be on resource group demo 2. So upon creation, please enable it, and that's it. I just created an alert. Okay, now if you just see, I wanted to restart this one now. Now restarting it. If you just check, okay, it has successfully been done. If I go to alerts now, I did create an alert. What happened? Not created alert. Yeah, it is created. Okay. Okay, let me check my. Let me check my cell phone. It should be there. Just give me a second. Okay, I didn't receive any. So let me just see what exactly is wrong with the row. Very good. All. Okay, only when failed. That was the problem. All statuses. Let's go back to restart. Okay. That's fine. This will share for sure will send me alert for every action. Let me say it. Put it into restart. Okay. Okay. So you see, you got the alert.